All right, it's 10 o'clock. Call Sawyer County Administrative Meeting to order. Ask clerk to call a roll, please.
Ron Kinsley,
Here.
Ron Buchholz,
Here.
Tom Duffy, John Righeimer, he's on virtual. Stacy Hessel, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Next item is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Number 4, certification compliance open meeting law.
This meeting was noticed to the public and the news media as required by section 19.84 of the Wisconsin statutes.
Thank you. Number 5 is the meeting agenda. The agenda is set. 6, public comment. Is there anybody online? They have their hand up. Good. Number 7, consider approval of the minutes of the previous meeting of February 13th. Motion by Mr. Duffy, second by Ms. Hessel to approve as presented. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Number 8, county clerk report, public record request.
Okay, so this is the report that Lynn had started to do, showing the dog license, marriages, licenses, plat books, and the election MOU reimbursement. It's kind of out of order on here. So, here, next request, I'm sorry. So next request, we had 18 new requests received. Total so far since last June is 301. 19 requests closed in the last month. We're doing pretty well. There's not a lot open. Desiree's doing a great job keeping up in the sheriff's department. We've been able to close some of them due to them being abandoned. Some people are paying the money in advance, and so mostly to the sheriff's department, they're bringing in some revenue, but it's not very much. Obviously, this is an expense where we have to do the request anyway. It's, this is a breakdown of, in the last month, $35 of staff time was spent. And we earned an average of $3. So it's not a money-making thing, but it does pay for some of the time spent on the staff. Other counties that I just met at a conference that are using this program really like it. And they like being able to track all of this information. And we're encouraging the public to enter the requests in here. And when departments get them, they're entering them through here so we can track them. So that's going really well. This is the other report. So we have a lot of dog licenses now because only 3 treasurers in the communities are still selling tags. They're allowed to sell them if they want, but they don't have to. And that's fine with us. The people come in, we're scanning in all of the rabies vaccine documents now, so we have them. Because a lot of times it's a 3 or a 5-year shot. And so the people lose the paperwork, but now we have it, so they're able to easily renew. The marriage licenses have been kind of slow this time of year. They're picking up. Plat books, we're selling those. There's no issue there. We're looking at Act 235 issues with the judge's information in plat books. And if we have to redact those, I really don't know the answer to that question. If we have to take a Sharpie and go into the plat books, there's a lot of them. So that's an interesting issue we're looking at. Elections. So we have an election coming up. Everything's going well. We had talked last time about the MOU terms with the towns. I came back from the conference. I talked to a lot of other county clerks. Some of them have 100,000 people in their county. We only have 18. So it kind of gave me a perspective. I am, not at this point going to just cut off the clerks. I think a lot of them still need help. I'd like to move to a hybrid way of doing this where maybe they enter their own absentee voters, because that's the main source of mistakes and document issues. And then I could still oversee everything else for them in WisVote. So I'm going to meet with them after the election's over and have that conversation to see if they're willing to move forward with that. It's way easier for them to do it themselves, but I don't think they know. So I want to show them. So, and I just also wanted to say, Laura, my deputy, she's doing a really good job. She's created a marriage docket, updated a lot of our files, the CDBG books and insurances. All the W-9s are coming in now from from vendors that we didn't have. And she's organized the dog license program. So I want to thank her. Any questions?
That dogs have licenses then? No tickets for those who don't have licenses?
Yeah, it's the rabies that they're tracking. So the purpose of the dog license is to track the rabies vaccine lots because there's all different manufacturers and batches. So say there was a rabies outbreak in Kenosha, they want to look at all of those records in the state and see which vaccine batch maybe had failed.
So
That's
your
why.
number 67, what does that refer to? Licenses or
Where?
For the dog license.
dog licenses?
Oh, 67 were issued by our office. So they come in and they pay $10 or $15. It's $10 for neutered, 15 for unneutered. And then we collect that money and most of it goes to the state. We
Okay.
pay the state.
How about cats? Do they have to have licenses?
No,
Oh,
it's only the rabies program, really. So some people view the dog licenses as a tax, almost like a nuisance that the county is doing to punish them, or they'd have to pay one more. That's another thing they have to pay. But the real purpose of this is to track the rabies epidemic issues. Like if there was an outbreak, they want to know whose dogs are at risk so they can notify them. I think we were trying to explain that to people and they seem to understand that now. So it's a little bit less friction at the counter. Someone had 12 dogs yesterday, so that's pretty expensive when they come in to get those. Yeah.
A public health for dogs.
Yeah, it's public health. So that's how we're trying to explain it to people now.
One question, no, so the upcoming election in April, then it'll be basically status quo, same as what Lynn was doing for election?
Yeah, they always say at the Elections Commission not to make changes between a primary and a regular election because of the short amount of time there. So we didn't change anything. And the clerks are being really great. And I really have no complaints. I don't anticipate any big issues with the changes we do make. I would just like them to learn more and understand how to do it better. And I think that's going to be the emphasis of the training that we do.
I think the training will be wonderful, thank you. Thank you. Number 9, Veteran Service Office Report. Welcome, Gary.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
So for our office in February, we had 589 phone calls, 892 letters, emails, and faxes, and 203 office visits. I got a workload comparison from last year for the same month. As far as VA disability compensation and pension claims, the Veteran Service Office, we had submitted 34 disability claims to date and received retroactive payment for initial payout of $43,158.37 for the claims that were decided in the veterans' favor. And again, you've got a comparison for 24 below that. La Crosse Vet Center, the office co-managed and hosted 2 individual and 2 group counseling sessions in February. We had coffee and conversation with Nicole and myself first Wednesday of every month. Social media, for our Facebook page, we had 6 new followers for 171 total, with an average of reach of 1,100 people, 106 contact interactions, and 94 visits. Secretary Bond dropped into our office on the 28th to discuss Governor Evers' proposed 2025-2027 biennial state budget, specifically how it applied to the veterans. And they're proposing a 5% increase to the CVSO, TVSO grant, a $100,000 increase to WDVA's County Transportation Services grant coffers, so it would be spread across, all the counties that have applied. And they proposed they're still proposing expanding the Veterans Outreach and Recovery Program personnel, basically doubling up in some cases in the area and reducing coverage for the current VORPs that are in the state. Our training's up to date. I handed out a handout. I offered to do a survey for this committee. And the green page, I tried to make the questions simple, not leading to any one conclusion on any of the questions. And so 2 questions went out. I tried using a company first to do the survey, and it come back and said they wanted money after the first 25 people And it's like, nope. So I had to go back and redo. I thought about it for a second. It's like I should have asked Mike in the first place, but I asked Mike Colson if we had a tool that would work on that, and we already had one. So I redid everything and resubmitted the survey out. So initially I had 452 on the email that went out, and I had 12 come back that were no longer valid. So it comes down to about 440 emails, participants that were emailed. Out of that, 89 provided feedback, which equals about a 20% participation rate. And the first question was the memorial type, which seemed to be, a little bit of a controversy. I asked them on the first question, Sawyer County is considering establishing one, a simple, low maintenance yet highly visible veterans memorial within the county. This vision was countered with a request for two, a more of a park-like setting, that's less visible for personal reflection. Are either of these two visions something you would support? So of that, we had 39 of the 89 that come back and said they wanted a simple, low maintenance, yet high visible memorial, if there was one, and then memorial type for the park-like setting, 41. So it's quite honestly pretty much an even split in my opinion on that. You had 6 that were unsure and 3 that had no to either option. Then the second question was regarding the location of such a memorial and mindful of the costs in upkeep to include the potential threat of vandalism. If a simple veterans memorial or a veterans memorial park is to be established, should it be located in or near Hayward, closer to the seat of Sawyer County government, or in a more centralized area within Sawyer County? And the choices they had was Hayward, more centralized within Sawyer County, or unsure. This one was much more firm as far as a response goes on what they wanted. The 71 come back with Hayward, the 12 more centralized, and 5 that are unsure. So I don't know if that helped you, but that is what we received as of today. I don't think I'm going to get too much more of a response. If you want me to keep going, I can, and come back again next month with an update if there is one. But I think that was pretty much reflective of surveys. Getting 20% was probably where you're going to go. So, any questions or?
I just wanted to say thank you for taking that extra effort and helping with that to get more input from the veterans.
Yep, no problems. So.
Before you got here, and we talked about what effect, if any, will the budget cut from the veterans federally have on your office?
I get that. I'm sorry. I get that question once or 5 times a day since all these changes have been going on with DOJ. The secretary of the VA come out. Like I think I said in the last meeting, his first speech when he took over, he said something that caught my attention. And watching what has been going on for the last 10 years, he said that the VA was special, but it was not unique. And he was talking about healthcare benefits. And I took that as, okay, and this is my personal opinion, is they're looking at less brick and mortar and filling that brick and mortar building with healthcare providers when they might be able to get it cheaper with qualified people working on the outside, utilizing Care in the Community program, where veterans do not have to take a 3-hour drive in our van to Minneapolis to get specialty care. They can go to Essentia Health, they can go to Marshfield, they can go wherever they want here in the local community to see these specialists that we have in the local community and get their care. So that was kind of my takeaway with that. Then about a month later, secretary come back out again and said, there's a lot of whoppers being told about VA care and, the VA in itself, not just the care, but the benefits administration and the cemeteries, administration. And, he said, let me be clear. He goes, you are not going to lose any benefits. If nothing else is going to become better. We're going to make it better for you to get basically quicker care and the same type of service or better. So, I have not seen anything at all to negatively affect our veterans. I know it seems like we've got people with gasoline and matches running around and starting brush fires with stuff. But I'm here to tell you, I have not seen anything factual on that. I've got friends in various, I guess, levels of the organization in the VA. All of them were satisfied with what was going on, except for one that was working from home for the last 4 years. And that person was provided the opportunity to go back to brick and mortar to do their job. They weren't fired, if you will, or removed. So I think what's going on, again, personal opinion, is there's a lot of administrative people in the administrative levels of the organization that might have been bolstered up beyond what maybe it needed to be done, where 3 people could do what 4 people or 5 people were doing. So, but again, that's all my personal opinion. But anyway, but for as far as the services go, I haven't had any problems. No veterans have been left on the side of the road. Nothing has changed. Let's put it that way. Nothing has changed for services. That's it, right? Because I can't see, I don't have a crystal ball. But right now I have nothing negative to report for our veterans.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you for sharing the information. Much
Thank you.
appreciated.
Thanks, Gary.
Number 10, informational technology report. Mr. Coulson.
Yeah, a project they're working on. Susan will be here, but
Okay. Anything we need to know about? Okay.
no, I don't think, what Liz talked about earlier, IT is heavily involved with that as far as the shielding data, of shielding judges' personal information from our public-facing databases like Novus. So they're working on that. They're implementing permitting for tourist rooming houses into Novus as well. So quite a bit of that type of thing with, trying to go more web-based so public can access more permits and information online. The digital signage went up in the building. We're still working on the displays and what's going to be displayed on them. And then the big project this year is underway as far as merging all of the different domains that the county has been operating under one single domain.
Thank you. Questions? Number 11, human resource report.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You have my report. I don't really have anything to add other than we did second round of interviews this morning with the youth diversion truancy candidates. And I've noticed quite a large uptick in the amount of applications we're receiving for all of our jobs. So I don't know what that says, but it's a good thing for us.
Yes. Number 12, county administrative report. Before I have Mr. Alvarado start, I will inform this committee that this morning I received his letter of resignation. I asked about that too. But I also like to thank him and wish him the best of luck moving forward.
Thanks. Yes, I did formally try to be. Didn't quite reach the button. Yeah, I did formally give a written resignation. I've tried to be upfront with the process, so there was like as much notice as possible. But the Chippewa County did approve the appointment and contract earlier this week. So in my letter, my first day in Chippewa County is planned to be April 28th. Planning or asking my last day here to be April 24th. So, but in the meantime, we'll work to wrap up as many of the projects as we can. There's a few balls we're getting rolling right now that I'm going to try to work quickly on and prepare everything for turnover as well. So, but like I put in my letter, I'm not, leaving the country. So whatever I can do after I'm done here, I'm more than happy to help out or answer questions too. As far as the report, kind of ordinance in the ordinance area, at Land, Water, Forestry, we reintroduced the management of tax deed lands ordinance. It had been discussed back in November. The treasurer at that time wanted to table it, to have more time to review it. We just waited, let Mr. Lehner get himself acquainted with the treasurer position, and we've gone through it. The committee did ask for some changes to the ordinance, so we're going to make those changes and bring it back next month. But that has to do with the state. Well, there's a few things I should mention. One is it has to do with the changes at the state level as far as state statute regarding tax deed lands in Act 207 and 216, which established some timelines county has to follow, as well as that we have to have an ordinance that allows prior owners an opportunity to repurchase the property before it's sold. And the big thing is that historically, when counties sold tax deed properties, we recovered our back taxes that had already been paid out and settled with other jurisdictions. We recovered our carrying costs, like if we had to pay utilities or mow the grass or those things, we recovered that. And then any surplus generally would, unless it was a homestead property, the county could retain. There was a Supreme Court case, Tyler v. Hennepin, that if you read WCA magazine at all, has been in there a few times, that basically said that that's a taking of property if we don't return the surplus to the prior owner or attempt to return the surplus. So that's what the state law changes were. Our ordinance, new ordinance, takes that into account. So we have a period of time that we have to take the property and then sell the property within the statutory guidelines. The way we sell it is now outlined in there. And then we do have to attempt to return the proceeds to the prior owner above our back taxes and carrying costs. The one thing in the ordinance, it does say that we're going to follow state statute. State statute allows you to take the property for back taxes after 3 years. Essentially, you have a 1 year of back taxes, then you have 2 years of notice, then you can take it. I don't know, I've never found it in writing here at the county, but past practice here has been to wait 5 years to take the property. But the change the committee wants is to actually put the 3 year timeline in the ordinance. I think that's, one, it's based on the new state statute, really what you need to do. But just from a practical matter, I'll just use an example. There's a property in the village of Radisson that has been sitting there at least 5 years now, the county hasn't taken. Potentially, if they would have been able to take it or would have taken it at 3 years, there might be a better property to sell. At this point, once houses are abandoned and unheated, they deteriorate quickly and it reduces the value of the asset. So that's one change that will happen. Talked to the treasurer about it. He's gonna have to, I think, phase that in a little bit, because I'm certain there are people who are just accustomed to waiting 5 years to pay their taxes who are going to struggle if you take it at 3 years. So there's going to have to be some notification and balance there to phase that in. So that's coming back next month. Related to that, in case you hear that the county is being sued, we are, as all our other 71 counties in the state, as well as the state of Wisconsin. There's been a class action lawsuit filed in regards to the Tyler v. Hennepin case, where it's no longer, counties are no longer able to retain the proceeds from sales of tax deed property, the surplus amount. Well, the class action wants to go backwards now to, I can't remember how many years, to try and recover all the monies that counties may have retained during a time period before this court case. So we've WCA's and their attorneys, who are sometimes our attorneys, are advising on it. Everybody's turned it over to their insurance companies because it's a liability case for the county, and we'll see how the insurance companies are gonna defend us in the class action suit. So I can't remember. I'll get it to you.
You don't have to.
Yeah,
I
it's-
just think that sets precedence that they're gonna start doing that with everything.
Well, and I mean, we've done, yeah, hopefully there's some settlement or something, because it's gonna be hard even to go back that many years and look at, I mean, we can account for how much we sold the properties for, but it may be difficult for us to account for expenses that we should have, because we don't necessarily charge ourselves back that many years ago.
How many people redeem their property once an in rem proceeding has started?
Doesn't happen very often. I don't know, I'd have to go back, but I know just from my own knowledge, once the county is taking it, you don't see them redeemed very often. If I have been, and this is one of the things that's covered in the ordinance and statute, it's usually because like like somebody has passed away and they haven't paid their taxes, the county takes it, and then maybe an heir or a beneficiary realizes that the county has that property, and then they come in and want to pay the back taxes to recover it. That's the most likely scenario I've seen in the past, but not, that I'm talking maybe twice that I've seen that.
Before the start of the action for in rem.
I'd have to ask the treasurer for the list. I don't know.
But if you have.
Accumulated.
That was in the finance report today. Let me look it up for you. If you want to continue on, I can look
Might
it
be a
up.
reflection of the economy of the area,
Yeah, it does go up with the economy. So it looks like 5 years delinquent, there are 37 properties, 4 years, 52, 3 years, 73, and 2 years, 255.
That's pretty good.
So there's 418 total that are delinquent as of last month. A little bit of Lake District work as well. So the Land Water Forestry Committee did have it on the agenda yesterday. Asked if they wanted to make any changes. I mean, really the only thing that could be changed or recommended, anything they would have done would have been a recommendation. They opted to not make any changes, so it'd be back on the county board agenda for next week for the county board to act. You can't change the petition or the report. It's either got to be, the only thing that could be changed are the boundaries at this point, or the parcels included, which would affect the boundaries. And then it would be a, up or down vote on the petition. You do have until next month to get it done, but that's where we're at. Open records request, Liz covered those. We did get a lengthy one yesterday regarding not so much the petition, but just on the Callahan Mud Lake Dam itself as far as construction and inspections. So we'll be working through that. We also received another one regarding the opioid settlement. So there's some activity there that we're working through. Again, all the counties involved in the opioid settlement are getting open records requests from a new law firm that's defending the pharmacy benefit managers. If you follow the opioid, I mean, there was a settlement with the manufacturers, there's distributors, there's retailers. Now they're engaged with the pharmacy benefit managers, having some liability. And so there's some pushback there. So they're asking for documentation, and we're getting advice from the attorneys for that on how to handle that. Airport, good news is the construction contracts for the runway reconstruction have been signed and scheduled. As soon as, I believe it's 10 days when road bans come off, the project is to start. So this weather is a good thing. We'd like to get the project done sooner rather than pushing it into summer when busier traffic starts to come in. So hopefully this holds and we get that project kicked off. I believe it's a 30 working days schedule, I believe. So it could be about a month and a half to do the project. Some of them are gonna move their, like the smaller ones will move their planes out to a local, adjoining airport, it sounds like. The bigger ones are gonna have to land like in Rice Lake or, Ashland or, Duluth. Snow removal equipment for the airport was approved, which is a good thing. We're getting a new loader, snow blower, snow plow. We're getting the whole project. It's almost a $500,000 acquisition through the BOA. Looks like our match is going to be in the $9,000 to $12,000 range because of the money that's being used doesn't all require match. So that's, pretty good return on our match funds on that project. Master plan is still a ways out. We had some questions last night at the committee meeting regarding engineering and acquisition of anything in the master plan. None of that is underway. The ALP, the airport layout plan, has to be updated as part of the master plan. So those things are all still in motion. I don't expect you're going to see anything on the master plan until midsummer at the earliest, it sounds like, probably closer to fall before they have all the engineering work and master plan work done for the county to accept the study. Ambulance, a couple things happening there. I think you're aware, still have Town of Edgewater that is working with Four Corners. We have some ongoing friction between the services on specific calls. So that was addressed at Public Safety, and we're doing follow-up on that. Town of Sand Lake is also inquired about, both of those towns, Edgewater and Sand Lake, and their attorney were at Public Safety last week to ask to be essentially removed from our county service. And like we've talked about before, there is effectively no way to remove a service. It's a county levy. There's no, for any county service, a town just can't say, well, we don't want to be a part of the libraries, or we don't want to be a part of zoning. It's all levied the same. Any town, any municipality is free to contract or designate who they want for fire service, EMS service, but they don't get removed from the EMS levy because of that. So I've talked to both those towns again. We are looking at a couple of their options. There is the potential that perhaps when they operate, their service operates in our county, they could operate under the Sawyer County Ambulance authorization. Still researching how that might work. So there's like just an operational discussion we have to have so that when there are calls, the friction does not show itself when both services are on the same call. Mr. Buckholz knows about that. But then it's just still looking at how we're operating. And in that regard, there is a study that's ongoing, started. 7 of the towns are working together. They've contracted with a consultant through an innovation planning grant they received from the state, and their scope of work is reviewing EMS services, our radio issues, how towns are paying for EMS, what are the response times, how EMR fits into their fire departments. So we have had contact from that consultant. They've, after they had their kickoff meeting, they sent us a list of things they want of information. So we've sent some of that. Like they want runtime reports, response times, equipment, staffing for the county ambulance service. John and I'll just be honest, have both talked to the consultant. It's the same company. It's a different person, but it's the same company that did the 2017 county study. I don't know that the person who did that is retired. I'm not sure that this consultant knew about that study, but he's aware of it now. We've pledged our cooperation and information to him for this study. But on the honesty side, I did express our concerns that they are assessing EMS service that they do not operate. The innovation planning grants at the state are for municipalities under 5,000 to look at sharing, consolidating services with the goal of a 10% cost savings. The planning grants are intended to position them to apply for the innovation grant dollars that will be forthcoming. Part of the issue I have is that we also be with the shared revenue increases that happened a couple of years ago. We had to, in order to maintain those dollars, we have maintenance of effort requirements now for law enforcement, EMS and fire departments. So towns have to sign those MOEs every year, return to the state for that you're not reducing. I mean, there's different ways to measure maintenance of effort. It's funding, it's staffing, it's response times. From a practical level, I don't know how you're going to get through a planning grant process that's going to show a 10% reduction in cost and still be able to fulfill the maintenance of effort requirements. And beyond that, even they're doing a study on costs that they're not paying. Like there's no EMS levy at the towns, or they're not paying. I mean, they might be paying for their own radios, but so I just don't know how that's going to work. But in the meantime, we're cooperative. We want to see where they go with the study. John Fremmel has shared some ideas with Mr. I think it's Dana's his first name. But, so that's just ongoing. So be aware of that. It's not all the towns that are involved. It's 7 of them, but it is like the ones that have expressed some concern with response times and where we have our garages located and how we're operating. So, I mean, I guess I would sit back, be cooperative, and see where they end up on. Maybe, we provided, I think, a good amount of information to the consultant that they weren't aware of. But that's probably the best thing for the county is to participate as much as possible and then see where they end up in their report.
I know here back, I think it was 2016 that we did it, all that ambulance study. And I don't know. I thought it would be all taken care of by now, and there shouldn't be any conflicts with anybody, but apparently there is. So I mean, it's on the website. You can go in there and read it and look at it, and I remember when all this went through. So I guess my concern is with Andy how this is going to work. I don't have any idea on that neither, but I know that study was done, and it was done really thorough, and I have the printout of it, and I think it's great, but I don't know, just some of these towns are just not happy with what we're given offered.
Yeah, and I think the one thing we're trying to sort out is I agree with everything you just said.
Yeah.
Like what information is being used, because I'm not sure, like they're unhappy with the service. But I mean, I don't think the service has gone down. Like our response times have not gone down. The level of care has not gone down. So we're just trying to pinpoint what, yeah, I mean, if they want to go from the response times we have now to shorter response times, then it's going to cost money. That's really at the bottom line. It's because you're going to have to compete for more personnel. You have to have more ambulances up and running. That's the only way. I don't have a good answer for how you reduce response times other than staffing up and operating another service. And again, this is the part that gets uncomfortable, is you're starting to talk about like how much is a life worth, and how much do you want to spend, and how many more people can you serve?
My only question is, so they're doing this study based on new leadership, obviously, in the townships, but has our county grown that significant in the 8 years since the study that it'll affect it either way, do you think?
The county has grown, the population has grown. There's, it's kind of like the transfer question you asked last meeting. Is it up? It's up, but is it up significantly? No.
Okay.
Like you still look at, based on the information I've had before about the number of calls in a day, like how many rigs, like we average, I think 6 calls a day, average across the whole year. It's like 2,000 calls a year is we're still like, we were like 1,900 before, now we're maybe over 2,000. So you think about that, that's not in what, I don't have my notes. I'd say like I have 6 calls a day. 1 is Ojibwa, 5 are out of the Hayward shop. Most of the Hayward calls are an hour or less. And they're going within 20 minutes of the city, bringing the patient back to the city. And that doesn't include transfers.
Well, and I think it'd be great if we could afford, if there was a huge significant money drop and we could afford to put a service in every township, but we can't even get the employees to meet the needs of each township. So I think that that's where the hiccup is, as I think a lot of these towns don't understand that there's just not the employees that would even fulfill the need. You know, that I know the town of Round Lake wants their needs met, but we wouldn't even have the employees to fill that. And that's where the big struggle is unless they're out promoting to get these employees to move to Sawyer County, we would not have the availability to even service these needs, even if there was a shop in every township. Yeah.
And that's where I'd say it comes down to money. And then when we had a meeting in the town of Round Lake, they were pretty forward about that. They understand it's money and they want better. And if it costs more, then we should be paying more. And I don't know, that's a question for the elected people at the end of the day as to how much more do you want to levy? I mean, could we attract more staff? Yeah, we could. I mean, we helped put 3 people through paramedic certification last year. They all had job offers for elsewhere by the time they were done. We know that. So if you want to attract more, you're going to see you're going to have to buy it. You have to buy those employees to work here rather than work elsewhere. And there's just not enough of them to go around. So that's where we're at. So. Rose, do you have any thoughts on any of this? I know you're in the middle of all those discussions.
I don't really have any thoughts on it. We are doing well over on our staffing at the ambulance service right now. I believe we've only got 2 open EMT basics. Otherwise, we are staffed up, which is a miracle, but.
Yeah. Yeah, and what we don't have that in the study, that study was based on the 2 locations and then having at least 2 full-time rigs in both spots. And that study recommended to continue operating Round Lake and Stone Lake with the volunteers or the call-ins. And that's the part that has gone away. And that was anticipated to go away. That's why you went to a full-time service, because you weren't able to staff the other ambulances. So to counter that, we've kept on increasing the hours on a 3rd truck here in Hayward. So that's, was what we call the power truck, which operated half the day. Now we're getting that to being a full-time truck. So you have 3 full-time rigs in the county, 2 here and 1 in Ojibwa. So that's where there might be some creative things to do that during the year, if fire halls and that's what John is talking about a little bit with some of the fire departments, that, during higher call volumes in the summer, could we find a fire department where the 3rd ambulance could locate itself during the day, or rather than going to full-time bases, and kind of gradually grow that out. So that's the update on
I
ambulance.
got one other thing
Sure.
too, Andy. Back in the day, I know when it was just on call or whatever it was out in Stone Lake, there was a lot of times that they were paged out and they could not get anybody to man that ambulance to go. So they had to call them in from Hayward. So, right there's a response time that's going to take a little longer because they couldn't get anyone from Stone Lake to run that ambulance. So, and that was one of the reasons, and I know John talked about that. That's why they kind of pulled that out of there, because they couldn't man it. Right?
Right, and that's where we're at now. I mean, we still have the ambulance out in Round Lake, and we still have it we'll have it back in Stone Lake, but there's not anybody making themselves available to take call. We have staff there, but they actually work full-time for us, and they're not, where they're working more than full-time for us here in the Stone Lake area. That's one thing. I mean, we talked a little bit about, if we raised the rates, would we have people available for what we call the volunteer or on-call? But most of the people that are licensed in the county, we know, and they're already working for us. They're already on our roster.
Just add one thing. When they did that study in the past, all they did basically is look where all the runs were and then tried to centralize from that. And we were getting to report in finance where all the runs were. And I mean, it's pretty plain where it's at. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
can I ask a question on the Lake District?
Yes.
Andy, so I just wanted to confirm, so on the land forest, Was anything talked about removing the non-riparian lots?
It was all talked about. There was a discussion about removing all the people who had asked to be removed. And there was a discussion, a brief, both were brief. The other one was about just lake parcel owners. The riparian owners are the ones that had access.
Right.
And brief discussions, and ultimately the committee made a motion to leave the boundaries as they were already forwarded to the board. There was no recommendation to change them.
So then, when that does come to full county vote, will that be next week or April? Or that's not really my question. So then, as a county board supervisor, I'm left with, there's no non-riparian option that I could
That
get
can still be
behind. It's
done.
just going to be yes or no on the way it is.
Oh, that can still be done. We put it on the Land Water Committee just to have another forum for that discussion, and it would have to be a recommendation from them. They made no changes, so there's no recommendation. But the board itself can still amend the boundaries or approve a different boundary than what has been presented to it.
So that request could be made at next week's meeting, and then it would be voted on, or then like the study would come back for then April?
It would be at the discretion of the board. You could do either one.
Okay.
Somebody could make a motion to amend the boundaries, and you could act on that and then act on the petition, or you could make a motion to be presented with a new boundary map at the April meeting. You could go either way.
So was Land Forest, they just did not want to take a stand on it, or were they against removing the non-riparian?
I can't answer that.
I talked to one of the members of the board, and they said because there was 4 board members there, they thought it was better off talked about at the full county board. So that's why they chose to leave it like it was. But I believe we also have a third option, and the third option is to do nothing at all.
But don't we have to make a decision by April ultimately?
We're gonna hopefully take care of it in the month of March, so it's wrapped up, I hope.
Okay. Thank you.
And we'll make sure it's on the agenda.
That's right. Broadband, everything that we've endorsed for the BEAD applications has gone out, and they've all filed their applications. And this is a comment related to, kind of the veteran service comment. There's questions coming up now because it sounds like this funding might be, I don't know if it's actually happening or if it's just discussion, but the BEAD process, the money is coming from the federal government to the state. The way they had prioritized the money had fiber to the home as the priority for funding, and satellite was like a last resort. There's discussions about changing that formula so that satellite will have an equivalent. So I don't know, we're waiting to hear if the money is actually being changed or if this is just discussion, but in case you hear that in the news, that is, could potentially affect this money that is coming to the state and how it's used. Criminal Justice Collaborating Council, we had, I think, a good meeting yesterday. The item to share here is that we're still waiting to hear from LCO about the MOU, about re-upping it for another year. It expired in February. Based on the conversation with public safety, my recommendation is that just to leave it, and we made changes to it last year, that we're fine re-upping it for another year. There is a fair amount going on at CJCC between things that already started, like the pretrial work, the diversion, the deflection. The treatment court is up and running. And then now we're bringing in some of the youth things like truancy and diversion for the youth area, as well as the work that public health is doing in the opioid area. So a lot of moving pieces there. Because of that, we had submitted to NACO to be a part of their peer exchange for CJCCs. So we were one of 8 that were selected. Julia Lyons and Judge Elaine Smith from LCO attended on behalf of the CJCC. They went to Arapahoe County in February and learned from other CJCCs. I think they came back with some good ideas as far as how to maybe manage our CJCC. And so we're heading down the road of creating an executive committee to, kind of track and keep organized some of the things, and also a data committee. There's been some questions on various data points and how we're tracking them to assess our criminal justice system and arrest data and recidivism and those types of things. So I think all positive, but if anything, it's growing pains and just trying to keep on top of everything that's going on there. Internal building facilities, maintenance has made a lot of progress. I think we're just about wrapped up the move where child support consolidated into different or swap spaces essentially with Justice Point. That required some little remodeling projects for both of those. The project that was going to happen in the clerk of court's office was determined by the clerk of court to not be needed. So we've shelved that, and then they were doing some work in the clerk's office to give Liz a little more privacy. And it was kind of an open air office. So now they've put up a wall to give that space some confidential abilities. Public Safety Radio Network, we're communicating with GenCom. They're putting together the plans. We did get just an update. One of the big pieces there is the WOJB tower. Nothing really encouraging at this point. The last update from over a week ago is that they're still negotiating with the cell phone provider. They've drafted an agreement, and it was presented to the TGB and LCO Legal, and that's where it's been sitting. So they have no response there, and they are holding us off until they can get that piece put together, which, like I've mentioned before, is a pretty big piece of our puzzle. GenCom is looking at all the existing towers as the priority to start with to see what terms of leases we could get in place. There are more tower options than there were even a year ago. So building a tower is a last resort, but hopeful that we'll have that ready for next month. Public safety, and then to the full board for the report. Carbon credits, just a quick update there that I did have a meeting with, and they were going to be sending me a written presentation to share, but things are moving along. Could be 3 to 4 months. They'll be ready. Those credits will be all finalized and be out on the market. Potentially there could be a sale yet this year. I wouldn't count on anything until you get a check in the mailbox. But we do know that checks are coming. Bayfield and Iron both have had ongoing sales. So nothing, they're not getting millions of dollars in yet, but everything is moving ahead. I think the other thing I was going to mention from the strategic planning that you heard at last month's meeting that's kind of intertwined with, my departure. I'm going to recommend just to push it off 1 month to start it, only because I've got Dale Knapp coming to the April board meeting. I even confirmed this morning that he'll come to the April 15th board meeting, not the one on the 17th. But Dale, if you don't know, you get Florida Analytics. That's the blue reports that come from WCA. They've done them on the demographics, the changing population. The one they just came out with was housing affordability, which is really interesting if you read that one. But Dale is the guy that puts it all together. He's going to come to the board meeting to give you a presentation on kind of Sawyer County's position in the county. The green book that you get from WCA, he'll kind of explain all that data as well as go into the demographics, housing, and the shifting demographics. I think that's a good kickoff that would be beneficial to the board as you enter the strategic plan. So, and that way also it gives whoever the new administrator is, it won't be wrapped, the planning process will be underway, but it won't be wrapped up and gets them a chance to jump in and help the board complete it. So I think that's all.
I got one question. Andy, on that WOJB tower, if they approve, put that cell on that tower, does that bump us out then?
Does not bump us out. It might bump our location on the tower.
Oh, okay,
But they say they believe they still have room for it.
okay.
But I should say, the GenCom is working on Plan B for what that's going to cover.
Yeah, because honestly, I don't think we're gonna be able to utilize that tower. I just don't think it's gonna happen with the relationship that the tribe has going on with the county board. I mean, I'm trying,
I know.
but I don't know. I don't think it's gonna work. I'm not gonna give up until I hear.
No, I think we should hang on to that as long as we can because it is such a big piece. And I mean, it's I want to lose that. I mean, it's important to our public safety, but it's also important to the LCO. It
Yes,
covers,
they're aware of that.
yeah. Any other questions?
Thank you. Number 13, consider administration report process. I have heard other people explain to me some different ways to go, and I've also listened to people tell me to contact PPA and get the project started. I thought about putting together an ad hoc committee, and I thought, why? We have administrative committee, and I think they can handle it. And also then communicating with PPA, I told them that I wasn't going to put together an ad hoc committee, just going to use administrative, and they thought that was a good idea. And it'll speed things up a little bit if we want to go with them. We have PPA virtual, and we have a closed session set up if we want to use that. And I'm willing to take questions if you have any questions regarding anything.
I was just gonna suggest, what you suggested is just have the admin committee be the committee to see the administrator position. So I agree with you.
And we have Mr. Rickheimer out there also. So if it's okay, correct me if I'm wrong, we can go into closed session and ask Mr. Hackney to communicate with us and talk. Do we need to go into closed session first?
Yeah, if you want to go through the negotiating the terms of the contract.
And everybody received that yesterday? Didn't know the best way to get out. I wanted to get it out to you prior to the meeting so you had a chance to read it. So with that, I'll read the closed session and then we'll need a motion to go into it, okay? Consider motion to convey into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statutes 19.851E, deliberate, negotiate purchase of public properties, the investment of the public funds, or conducting a specific public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, to wit, the purpose of the consider entering into a contract with public administrative associates and discuss the possible terms in negotiating that require a closed session to ensure the county's competitive and bargaining position. The committee may reconvene into open session immediately following the closed session and may discuss and take official action after the matter is closed session.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to go into closed session.
We have a motion by Mr. Buckle, second by Ms. Hessel to go into closed session. We need a roll call vote.
Ron Kinsley,
Yes.
Ron Buckholz,
Yes.
Tom Duffy, John Righeimer,
Yes.
Stacy Hessel.
Yes.
So it's unanimous. We're going to closed session. I'll also say that Liz Klein, the clerk's here, the administrator asked to stay, and we have Rose Lilyroot here as HR. I asked her to stay. We're in closed session.
Okay, so here, I'm going to move the people to the waiting room.
I run like the winded.
And no,
Click on participants.
oh yeah, okay. Okay. And then stop recording.
Sparta.
Okay.
When are you coming back?
I'm not coming home.
We're back. We're back.
Next meeting down by you.
We're back in open session. And at this time, the committee will reconvene open session immediately following the closed session and may have discussion and take action on the matter that was discussed in closed session. Mr. Buckles.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve PAA with help in getting our administrator applicants.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Righeimer. Motion by Mr. Buckles, second by Mr. Righeimer to approve. Do we want that motion to have the wage in it?
I think.
No, yeah, I think you're just referring the contract to the, county board.
Just one last, make sure. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
And it's to move it on to the full county board. Opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Just trying to make sure I cover everything.
Yep.
All right, so next item is number 14, board appointment committee updates.
Yeah, Northern Water Library virtual Saturday.
Okay.
My committee for 11 o'clock got canceled anyway, so Pace hasn't met since December.
Number 15, correspondence reports, conferences, meetings, future agenda items. Well, we have a few things we're gonna have on there, but if someone wants something on there, please ask. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.